kidnapping victims in my CDs.
Afroman, the dude behind the iconic song Because I Got High, is facing off against the same Ohio deputies who had the audacity to raid his home.
$4,390.
What happened? Well, these delicate little deputies are suing Afroman for the unforgivable crime of using their faces on his merchandise. I mean, really, the sheer gall of Afroman to slap their faces on his merch is just plain terrible. After all, being immortalized on a shirt next to Peter Griffin from Family Guy is a fate worse than death. But that's not all. Oh no. The deputies are also really peeved about Afroman using their faces in his videos.
Would you like to have a slice of my lemon pound cake?
The horror. Now, the thing about Afroman is he's not going to take the accusations lying down. He definitely has a lot to say about the deputies. He is quoted as saying, "My house is my property. My video camera films everything on my property as they begin, stealing my money, disconnecting plus destroying my video camera system. They became my property." I assume that when Afroman had submitted that to the sources, he may have been enjoying a little bit of his favorite herbal remedy. But nevertheless, he's not about to let the deputies get away with ludicrous accusations of kidnapping and drug trafficking. I mean, come on. The dude's claim to fame is getting high, not being part of a drug cartel, which really brings us to the important matter, which is all the damage that these deputies caused during their little escapade. It all started with an ongoing investigation culminating in a raid on Afroman's Ohio home in August of 2022. The Adams County Sheriff's Office deputies, who are now plaintiffs in the lawsuit, stormed Afroman's home, ransacked the place in search of narcotics and kidnapping victims. Now, sadly for them, their search did come up empty. Now, during this raid, Afroman was not home, but his wife was, so she went ahead and broke out her cell phone to record the search. And of course, Afroman's home was tricked out with a multitude of security cameras, so they got a lot of footage of the deputies during the raid. And this is where the story gets absurd. The deputies are claiming that they never gave Afroman the permission to use the footage from the raid in his music videos, nor did they give him the permission to put their faces on his merchandise. So really, when it comes down to it, they're completely livid about Afroman profiting off of their images and likenesses. So in the lawsuit, the officers are complaining that Afroman's music videos, as well as his social media posts and merchandise related to the raid, amount to an invasion of their privacy and misappropriation of their likenesses. And if that wasn't enough, they claim that it caused them emotional distress, ridicule, humiliation, loss of reputation, and embarrassment. I mean, hey, it comes with a job, right? So for his part, Afroman says the deputies raided his home in search of narcotics, then come up empty-handed, and that the deputies had seized over $4,000 in cash, and that $400 of it had not been returned. But the Claremont County Sheriff's Office conducted an investigation and found that the Adams County Sheriffs had miscounted the money they seized and that the correct amount had been returned. And now the deputies want the judge to order him to stop using their precious faces for commercial purposes. But Afroman says, screw that, I'm making them famous. He's determined to defend himself in the face of corruption and says the sheriff's department themselves were acting in a very criminal fashion. And he's, of course, given the deputies hilarious nicknames as well, one of which I will reveal at the end of the video. Because, of course, nothing stings more than having your credibility questioned by a satirical moniker. In a public statement, Afroman said, "I'm a law-abiding, tax-paying citizen who is violated by criminals camouflaged as law enforcement. I use my property, my video footage to make up for damages and to make the public aware of criminals disguised as law enforcement, stealing money and disconnecting cameras." Now the deputies, having had their feelings hurt and their reputations damaged, are seeking more than $25,000 in damages. The amount, they claim, is the profit that Afroman has made from using their likenesses. They should have waited maybe a year. That profit might have gone up. In addition, they're demanding that their case be brought before a jury. Meanwhile, Afroman has promised to countersue for the undeniable damage that the raid caused on his property, and also what he says is damage to career and all the stuff his family had to go through. So he's definitely not going down without a fight. It's an age-old story. The abuse of power by law enforcement and the fight for justice by those who refuse to be silenced. But in this case, it is a reminder that there is always room for a bit of humor and sarcasm to expose the absurdity of the entire situation. So props to Afroman for cleverly facing down these officers. And really, no matter what the final verdict is, Afroman owned those cops and made total fools out of them. And then the cops themselves made even bigger fools out of themselves by going and crying to the courts. I mean, if those cops who protect and serve are that emotionally fragile, I certainly wouldn't feel safe living under their jurisdiction. And as promised, I will say this. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll all be sporting our own Officer Poundcake shirts, laughing our asses off at the overly emotionally fragile cops who felt so violated by being on some merch. That's it. Make sure you like and subscribe. You are now in the family. Thank you for watching.